Greetings. This is the first of 3 lectures on Chapter E from Miguel Roig-Francoli's textbook, Harmony in Context. I'm going to start by sharing my screen with you. Okay, this is a handout that I made that I'm going to be going through that has some information about Chapter E. If you would like to download this handout, it is on Canvas, so you can get your own copy and put it in with your notes. In tonal music, and tonal music just means music that's in a major or a minor key, every note is in a hierarchical relationship to the tonic. So each scale degree is a sort of special, unique scale degree in the key. That's why in sight singing and ear training, we are training you to be able to tell where you are in the scale and to be able to hear the unique sound of scale degree 4 in a major key, for example, or scale degree 6 in a minor key. And that's why each scale degree has its own name that you learned in Chapter C. So every note is in a hierarchical relationship to the tonic note, which is at the center of the key. And it's also true that every chord is in a hierarchical relationship to the tonic chord. So just like the leading tone note is a note whose tendency is to lead to 1, so it is also true that the dominant triad and also the triad that's built on the leading tone, both of these chords have a tendency to lead to 1. And every chord has a tendency to go in a particular direction, or it is a stable chord that doesn't have any particular resolution tendency. I can say by way of a sort of short summary that the dominant chord has the strongest relationship to the tonic chord, and the dominant chord really wants to resolve to the tonic chord. The subdominant and the supertonic chords relate strongly to the dominant chord. Other chords are less central to a key, but they too have particular relationships either to the tonic or to different chords. When I say that each chord in a key has one or more roles that it plays in the overall harmony, what I'm talking about is the harmonic function of a chord. And we will be spending most of this semester learning about the harmonic function of all of the chords in major and minor keys. Now, when we talk about harmony in classical music, we use Roman numerals to label and refer to the chords. So we'll talk about a 1 chord, or a 4 chord, or a 5 chord. And when you hear those numbers, 1, 4, and 5, what you should be picturing in your head is a Roman numeral 1 to label the 1 chord, or a Roman numeral 4 or Roman numeral 5 to label the 4 and the 5 chords. The Roman numeral labels tell us a number of things. First off, what they tell us is the scale degree that's the root of the chord. So when we talk about the Roman numeral 5 chord, that's one that's built on scale degree 5. In the key of C major, the 5th scale degree, C, D, E, F, G, is G. So the 5 triad is GBD. It's a G major triad. Something else the Roman numerals tell us is the quality of the chord. We use capital Roman numerals for major triads, and if we were to have an augmented triad, which is very rare, we would also use a capital Roman numeral for that. Lowercase Roman numerals are used for minor triads and also for diminished triads. Diminished triads have the little diminished circle to show that they are diminished. And finally, once you know something about Roman numeral labels for chords and about harmonic function, the Roman numeral will tell you something about the function of the chord. For instance, when you see the Roman numeral 2 being used to label a chord, you'll know that that chord not only is the supertonic triad and a minor triad if you're in a major key, but also that that's a chord whose role is to lead to the 5 chord. Here is a chart that will show you the Roman numerals for triads in a major key. In this case, the key I've selected is A major. We're in bass clef. The roots of the chord are the notes of the scale from A up to G sharp, and I've labeled the scale degrees that are the roots of the chords with the scale degree numbers. And you'll remember from Chapter D the qualities of each of these chords. We learned that the triads built on 1, 4, and 5 are major triads. The triads built on 2, 3, and 6 are minor triads, and the triad built on the leading tone is a diminished triad. So here are the Roman numerals that we would use to label the chords in a major key. And these would be used in any major key. Any major key has the major triads in the same place, the minor triads in the same place, and the single diminished triad in the same place. So you don't need to carefully calculate the quality of each chord that you come across. You can just count on it being the regular kind of chord that we have in major keys. So I used a Roman numeral 1 for the tonic. Roman numeral 2 and Roman numeral 3 are lowercase because they refer to minor triads. Now here's something that may throw you off. Take a good look at Roman numeral 4 and Roman numeral 5. Remember how Roman numerals work. If the smaller numeral is to the left of a number, we subtract it. So this is a 4 because it's 5 minus 1. If the smaller numeral is to the right of the bigger numeral, then we add them together. So this is a lowercase Roman numeral 6. It's very common for students to get Roman numerals 4 and 6 confused, and that is a bad thing. So learn those Roman numerals. And then, of course, we have the Roman numeral 5 for the 5 chord and the lowercase Roman numeral 7 with the diminished circle for the 7 diminished triad. In minor keys, we will have a different set of Roman numerals that is the same numerals, but different capital and lowercase Roman numerals. So here are the Roman numerals for triads in the key of A minor. Okay, remember here the 1 triad, the triad built on scale degree 1, is minor. So Roman numeral 1 is minor. It turns out that the supertonic triad is a diminished triad, but the 3 chord, remembering that we need to use the natural form of minor for this chord, the 3 chord is major. The 4 chord is minor. In the 5 chord, we need to use the leading tone. So we borrow the G sharp from A major. It's actually part of A harmonic minor, and we use the G sharp as part of the 5 chord. So the 5 chord, E, G sharp, B, is the same in A minor as it is in A major. The 6 triad is a major triad, and the 7 triad, again built on the root of the leading tone, G sharp, is a diminished triad. And once again, here's the Roman numeral 4, which is IV, not to be confused with the Roman numeral 6, which is VI. In chapter 4, we learned how to use figured base numbers to show inversions of triads. Those figured base numbers can be combined with Roman numerals so that we can show, for example, the 5 chord in first inversion. Here's an example from your book that shows that. Now we're in the key of D major. This is a Roman numeral 1 chord, a tonic triad. This is the tonic triad, but it's now in first inversion. We would call this a 1-6 chord. Here's the 4 chord. This is the 4 chord in second inversion. So we would call this a 4-6-4 chord. Here's the 2 chord and the 2 chord in first inversion, the 5 chord and the 7 diminished chord in first inversion. These other examples show similar combinations of Roman numeral chord labels with figured bass to show the inversions of those chords. We're in the key of G minor. So again, notice when we do use the leading tone F sharp and when we don't use it. The 3 chord has an F natural in it, but the 5 chord, the 5-6 chord, the 5-6-4 chord, and the 7 diminished triad all use the leading tone F sharp. We use Roman numerals for 7th chords in the same way. Here are the Roman numerals for 7th chords in major keys and in minor keys. I've shown you the quality of the 7th chords in major and the quality of the 7th chords in minor. And then here's how we use the Roman numeral labels. Notice that we use a major or capital Roman numeral both for major 7th chords and for the major minor chord built on scale degree 5. So there's nothing to tell you in that Roman numeral label whether the chord is major or whether it's major minor. You just have to know that the chord that's built on the dominant is a dominant seventh chord or a major minor seventh chord. The minor minor seventh chords are all shown with lowercase Roman numerals and the subscript 7. And the half diminished seventh chord built on scale degree 7 is shown with that circle with a line through it next to the 7, so that we would say that this is a 7 half diminished seventh chord. Here are the qualities for the seventh chords in a minor key. Again, we haven't made a distinction between the major major seventh chords and the one major minor seventh built on scale degree 5. Again, we have a couple of minor seventh chords, the 1-7 and the 4-7. Notice that the 2-7 chord is half diminished, but that here the 7-7th chord is a fully diminished seventh chord. Some of your homework for this week will involve your employing Roman numerals with and without figured bass symbols.